Hey folks, it is Eric Goins here from Flywheel Studio, and I'm going to go through exactly how I built Usroll. Okay, it's still in development, so it's not done yet, but I'm going to show you all the technology we use and how to get started with this process. Okay, if you haven't watched the other videos in this series, I would go back and watch those because they're going to build off of each other. We've already talked about design, how we come up with the idea, RevenueCat Shipathon, which is what this is for. And so you'll want to watch those videos before this and then come back and watch this video after those. Okay, let's get started. First, I use Claude Code. Okay, if you're not familiar with Claude Code, if you're not familiar with Terminal, there's a lot of resources out there to use this. But my recommendation is to go check those resources out first and maybe pause here for just a moment before you continue, okay? You can also use Codex. Anything else works for this, okay? You can use Open Harness or Open Code. You can use Grok Build, but I use Claude Code, so I'm going to talk about a lot about Claude Code in particular because it works with Claude Design. After you've gone through and you kind of designed this perfect product in what you want, you can take this and hand it off to Claude Code, okay? Now, the first thing I do is I work locally on my projects, okay? I do add a GitHub so that the code is backed up somewhere else. It's not only on my computer. If I lost my computer, I don't want everything to disappear. But at the exact same time, it's just easier to work on these locally, okay? So the first thing you'll do is create a folder on your computer. You will put your Claude Code session in that folder. And then what you'll do is you will hand over your designs to Claude Code. Now, I have a really great claude.md file. If you want that file, send me a message. I would be happy to share it. But what it does is it tells Claude how I want it to build mobile applications, okay? It has instructions on the way I think about building apps, the process I want to follow, what I want it to do between each prompt that I send it or task that we go through. I want it to know and think about things like testing and updating its documents and how it communicates. And then lastly, I want it to know the technology I want it to use. So first, in technology, let's talk about the language. We are using Swift, okay? Swift is the native language for iOS applications. It is what you would think of as an iOS application. It does not work for Android. Okay, it doesn't. It's iOS only. All right. And I knew that going in. That's a decision I made that this is only going to be an iOS application. All right. The second thing I chose to use here is I chose to use Firebase. Now, I really love Supabase. There's a lot of great backends here. I chose to go with Firebase because it's easy, okay? Firebase has a bunch of tools and features that I like to use for my application. And given the timeline to build this app and the simplicity and speed that we're trying to go for, I just wanted to keep it all on one platform, okay? Now, first off, what does Firebase have? The first thing is authentication, okay? It's pretty simple. That is how users sign up for your app, all right? And one of the things about this sign up is that I wanted to use Apple, all right? So I went in, I set that up. I set up Apple on the Apple developer account. There's a whole thing about that. You should read the docs. That's not for this video. But I set up all of the authentication so people can sign up for the application. The second thing it has is Firestore. Okay, Firestore is a database that is storing our data. Okay, and so you have users, you have roles. It's actually super simple. Our app is not complicated. Going back to that TikTok app principle we talked about in the last video. Secondly, or third, I should say, we have storage. Okay. Storage is where we are storing our files, all right, and we're making sure that those are secure so that when users add pictures, those pictures are in here and they are well secured, and so that people can only see the pictures that they should have access to. Now, I use a lot of other tools and features, okay? We use app check, we use remote config, we use performance, okay? We use analytics. We have audiences, all right? We add all of those to this, all right? And now most of those don't make a big difference when we're starting with an application. They pay dividends down the line as our application grows, all right? And so some of this is just giving yourself the right place to start with. Don't overthink it though. You've got 2 months to create an app as part of Shipathon. But what's even more important is that you focus on the core of your product and don't get too far ahead in terms of, scalability when you have no users. Okay. Now, I want to talk about 3 other tools we use. All right. The first one is uLinkly. All right. What uLinkly is doing is it has all of our deep linking for our application. All right. Now we're still in development. We're not even really into deep link testing, but what we need is deferred deep linking as part of our app and a big part of what we want to achieve here. All right. And this is super important for apps that really where you think you're going to have some sense of virality. Okay. Is we want to have a user invite process. All right. That is so critical. And you need deferred deep linking to get it right. Here's why. Every application has a link, and that link is a little bit like a URL, okay, for a website. Now, if I want to invite somebody to one of my roles, okay, I need to send them a specific URL to get them into the application and get them to that URL role, to that role, that camera role that we're building or that we have in our application. Now, why is that so hard? That's actually really easy, right? You copy a URL, you paste it, you send it to somebody else. It's actually really difficult because what if that person doesn't have the application? They cannot open that link. There's no app to open it. So what would happen is that would just fail on the person's phone, okay? Now, if you have deferred deep linking, what this does is it takes them to the right app store first. And then secondly, what that will do is, and let's go and I'll show you this here, okay? What that will do is, so I need to go set all this up here, but what you have is you have this iOS fallback domain, okay? And what that means is that if somebody clicks this on their iPhone and they don't have the app downloaded, it will take them to the app store to download the app, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to add these parameters to this, all right? And you can also add your social media previews, okay? So that when somebody clicks on this invite link here, they go to the app store, they download the app, and when they download the app, they'll go through the journey that will then take them into the correct camera roll so that they have access to that, okay? They'll need to sign up, but maybe you skip onboarding, maybe you don't. It could depend on your application. For me, I'm not going to. They'll go through the entire onboarding process, okay, of getting signed up, and then they'll immediately go into this camera and be able to take photos as part of the group, okay? That's super critical because of one fact about that. If everyone you're inviting is already on the app, that's kind of great. Okay, cool. But I want people to invite users who aren't on the app. I want people who have not downloaded our application, Usroll, to get an invite and somebody says, hey, you should download this. It's so cool. Download this app and let's take photos together and create this awesome camera roll. And then that person goes through, they download it, and they have a great experience. Now we have a new user on our application who has the potential to pay or convert in the future, okay? That is a growth technique. Now, The next one we use is we use it in an application called Analytics Drop. Okay. We use the Analytics Drop. There's no data in here because, again, we're still in testing. But what this does is it just shows where people drop off when they're signing up for the application. Okay. It's a little SDK that you drop into your app, and it just helps you get some analytics really quickly and easily without having to set it up the hard way in Firebase or in other in another analytics platform. I still do use those just as backup. And then this will work with your agent, so you can use it in like Claude Code or Codex. And then what it will do is it will add all of your metrics like an activation point or a conversion point or first open, whatever those are, so that you can track those really easily here and see where you can improve your product. Lastly, and I do not have this set up yet, so I'm going to stay on the homepage. We're going to be using Pushfire for our notification campaigns, okay? That way, when a user downloads the app, we will be following up with them to make sure they continuously use the app over time, and that they kind of build that user engagement, okay? That's going to be way down the road, though. After we launch, we'll make sure that we get all of our users into Pushfire, and then we'll build out those campaigns to drive that user engagement. So again, the core basis of the app is going to be Swift iOS, and really the engine that's going to run this is going to be Firebase, okay, and all of the Firebase products, all right? We're going to use uLinkly for our deferred deep linking and our user invite process. We're going to be using Analytics Drop for our analytics, and then we'll be using Pushfire for the user engagement. And I almost forgot, this is crazy. We, of course, are using RevenueCat for our paywalls, okay? And we're actually using the RevenueCat dynamic paywall. And I'm going to make a whole nother video on what we're using RevenueCat for, so it's not going to be in this one. But we're going to be using RevenueCat dynamic paywall. That way we can update our paywall and our pricing automatically from RevenueCat and get that out to users without shipping new versions of our app. That'll be in a whole different video. Lot more details to come there. But everything else that you see in this app is really native, functionality that's built into Swift, like the location, the camera, having these photo albums. I mean, those will be stored in Firebase. There's no other integrations really that I can think of. So with that, let's end this video. And in the next video, we will get into the RevenueCat stuff that we're using. Thanks.